Um, speakers at this conference will be Jim Cudahy.
Very good.
Are you applauding for the pronunciation?
Yes.
Karen Yates, another one, please. Then Linda Drake. Yes, sorry, I was looking for you there. And Laura Batani. The first two speakers are Jim Cudahy and Karen Yates. Jim is the executive director of the National Court Reporters Association in Washington, D.C., United States. NCRA is a membership association of 19,000 court reporters, students, and others involved in the court reporting industry. Karen Yates is past president of the National Court Reporters Association, and she's a card provider and captioner in Nevada, Western United States. Thank you for speaking. I'm leaving the floor to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I'm going to take about the first 10 or 12 minutes and just give you a general idea of our oral histories project, and more specifically our Veterans History Project that NCRA has organized over the years. And then Karen's going to talk more specifically about her experiences with oral history. And really, when we're talking about the use of stenographic court reporters, there are multiple uses, alternative uses of the skills that they use. Broadcast captioners who do live programming on television, live captioning, most often are stenographic court reporters. Karen has done that in her past, or sometimes now, I guess. There are cart providers you've heard people talking about, which is, and Karen will talk about that some, and that's what she does. But you also have court reporters that are used to do audio transcription, most often from audio files that are generated in the courtroom setting. And also, but sometimes, not often, they're used for rapid text entry. In our case, it's not necessarily a different discipline. It's really making use of court reporters to transcribe interviews that are done with various people. And in my case, I'm going to talk about the U.S. veterans, soldiers of American wars and so forth. And Karen has some other examples of how that's been applied. But let me talk about our Veterans History Project. It is a project that has been organized and began with the United States Library of Congress. So the United States Library of Congress, I don't know if it's the largest library in the world, but it's got to be up there. It's the library for our Senate and House of Representatives in the Washington, D.C. area, but really has a larger goal of capturing the history of the United States. And so they, I guess in 2003, I think it was, perhaps a bit earlier, launched a very large-scale project to interview as many veterans as they could. And I say that veterans of the wars, it could be soldiers, it could from our 5 branches of military, as well as anyone who is associated with various arms of the military in different aspects, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But really what they're trying to do is to create a chronicle of the history of the various wars that you see listed there. And it does have a different type of a goal necessarily than what you would think, and I'll read it. But the Veterans History Project collects, preserves, and makes accessible the personal accounts of American war veterans so that future generations may hear directly from veterans and better understand the realities of war, which I thought was a pretty noble purpose. When it's not just about having the glory, so to speak, of the veterans and what they did, and the experiences, but also to educate people to make sure they understand that when in the future we are thinking about going to war or into battle, that we really understand the full repercussions of what's involved with that. And like I said, it's not just the soldiers themselves, but nurses, what they call USO representatives, people that entertain the troops during war, doctors, and even journalists who might be involved with war. So it's not just about the military itself. And these stories are told through images and photographs, so visual materials, through correspondence, which you see on the right, and then what we are talking more specifically about today through personal narratives, through interviews, through conversations. So the question becomes how to create a written record when you literally are talking about hundreds of thousands of people that you're trying to talk about. And that was the large, oh, you want me to slow down?
What happens?
Let me know when you're ready. I think I was talking too fast and it actually shut the computer down, so I will slow down a little bit. So the question then becomes, how do you go about this massive task, this large task of trying to get so many different people interviewed? It was a very daunting task, and having a video of or even audio of an interview is great, but to have a text, to have a transcript of the interview that could be searchable, could be put up in an archive, in a database that could be used for people to research and doing research projects and so forth. It's a nice compliment, and it makes the text, the interview, that much more usable for people when they go back and to do searches on the internet and to do research. And so that's where the court reporters fit in. So I say cue up the court reporters. Carlo mentioned that I am the executive director of the National Court Reporters Association. We also have what is called the National Court Reporters Foundation, which is a charitable organization designed to help the court reporting profession and to do various charitable acts. So it has a different purpose than the association, which is typically more educational focused. The foundation is engaged in more of a charitable aspect. So it made great sense for our foundation to be involved with that. So they began a campaign in which over, I guess, a 5-year period, they were looking to have members of our association, so court reporters, as well as students, as well as anyone else out there within the court reporting profession who might be interested in participating, to either, in some cases, sit in a room as interviews are being done and transcribing the interview as it takes place, or taking down the interview and then later going back and transcribing it. But more often, actually, someone else will take care of the interview with a video or with an audio file, and the Library of Congress ends up getting these files, and then we can pass those along through our foundation to court reporters and to students, and they will transcribe the audio at that point. So it's much more frequent for that to happen that way. And it's been a great success. It's really been, as I'll talk about in a moment, it's been a great way for us to promote our profession to an important constituency in the military, but also to a larger group of individuals who learn about the interviews and how the court reporters were involved through media channels, through the news, which happens pretty frequently. So it's a way for us to promote the profession itself. To give you one example, just one, the current Secretary of Defense of the United States, Chuck Hagel, is a veteran of the Army. And I went too far. And he has done one of these interviews in the past. And I just looked up the transcript that you see there that was created from his interview. It's 20,000 words, which, at 200 words a minute would, or a little slower than that even, would be about a 2-hour interview. So when it's transcribed to text, then it becomes something that can be put up and can be searched in internet searches and so forth. So just to give you one example, and there's a visual aspect to it. So if you go into the archives of the Library of Congress, you see photos and imagery as well as the actual text of the interview. And then real quick before I pass it along to Karen, just in terms of how it's done, we send out generally requests to members of our organization, to reporters, to court reporting schools and students to ask them if they will be willing to participate. And then our foundation, the National Court Reporters Foundation, coordinates and puts the people together to transcribe in most cases, transcribe the audio. And we also have state associations of court reporters within the United States, so local state associations, affiliates, and some of those are involved as well. In fact, our affiliate association in Texas is very involved with that, and they do a lot of work as well. Again, schools and students contribute. And one of the things that we offer, and kind of the incentive that drives a lot of what happens at the National Court Reporters Association, is we offer credits to our members. Every 3 years, they need to earn a certain number of credits to recertify themselves. If you have the RPR designation or the RMR designation or any of a host of credentials that we provide, you have to earn continuing education credits. So we allow for court reporters to earn a certain number of credits if they go through it and pursue that. And in addition, we offer through the foundation free memberships to NCRA to students who do a certain number of transcriptions in any given year. And that's the foundation actually covers the cost of the membership, but the student is required to do that many number. A student can just pay for membership, but instead they could go do, I don't know the number, 8 or 10 of these transcriptions, and then they will end up getting their membership for free. So it's really what we call a win-win situation. And there's also, we get some grants from various veterans groups to help defray our costs of basically of the staff that we have that coordinate the programs. So, and the result is that the foundation has coordinated over 5 years 3,000 interviews that have been transcribed. Those are now permanently archived at the Library of Congress. Again, a very powerful research tool. And it's great, as I said, it's great exposure for the profession, and it's great exposure for our organization. We get known in groups, we're always trying to build wider recognition of court reporters in the community, and this is one way that we are able to do that. And then one of the last thing, we really hear from our students and from our members of what a great experience this is. In a lot of the cases, they get to meet people from an older generation, they get to meet our military heroes, and they just continually are telling us how happy they are to do that. And typically when you get someone involved, they're not just going to do 1 or 2, they're going to stay involved with it and help to advance this very worthwhile effort that the Library of Congress has been involved with. So, it's not just military, and then Karen's going to talk about her experiences as well as how she's been involved with it.
Although I've been involved with NCRA and have been a court reporter for 41 years now, before I learned about the National Court Reporters Foundation's Veterans History Project, I was already doing oral histories. In my real life, I have a sport called falconry, which means I'm a hunter, but I don't use a gun and I don't use bow and arrows. I hunt with peregrine falcon. And the sport of falconry is ancient and very well known in the Middle East and in China and other places, but it only recently came to the United States, 1930 approximately, which means that our pioneers in the sport are still alive, many of them. And we have an archive of falconry that's located in Boise, Idaho, in the western United States, where they have concentrated, much like Jorge has done and much like Dominic has done, all the artifacts and letters and artwork and many things related to falconry. And they have also accumulated interviews with these pioneers in falconry. And I can tell you that there is only one person with transcribing experience in the United States who is also a falconer, and they found me. So I have been transcribing these interviews for many years, and it's very rewarding. And then when I discovered the Veterans History Project also through NCRA, I had them send to me these, initially it was cassette tapes, and that's why the Library of Congress was interested in court reporters becoming involved, because the media, the material that this was recorded on was starting to decay, and they were worried that these precious interviews would be lost. So they had us begin to interview these, to transcribe these interviews, and then send them back for storage. And I did a few of those, and it was very moving to hear the recollections. The ones I did were all from World War II, of men who were young boys when they were sent off to war. Many of them were just farm boys from the country who, this was not only their first time out of town, this was their first time out of the state, out of the country, and going to foreign places that they had only read about. So it was fascinating to me to read about, to listen to and then read about their experiences. After a few of these transcriptions that many of us were doing, the Library of Congress was so impressed with the materials they were getting from the court reporters, because we are, by profession, all of us, very detail-oriented. We meet our deadlines. We're very thorough and conscientious. And they said, this is wonderful, but these are older people, and we're losing so many of them every day, and their stories are being lost. Stop what you're doing. Go out and find some of these veterans from World War II, especially. Find someone to interview them, conduct the interview, and you also do the transcribing. So at least in Nevada, where I am, I helped organize teams of court reporters. One would do the interviewing and one would do the transcribing, so that these stories would not be lost. Then I thought, you know what? In my own family, I know I have uncles. I'm older, and my uncles are very old. And they served in World War II. I'll capture their stories. And so it gave me a wonderful opportunity to talk to my family members who I'd never heard any of these stories before. And so now those have been transcribed and are at the Library of Congress. And I was especially fortunate that my husband's aunt, Helen Snap, in World War II was a woman pilot. She was in what we called the WASPs, Women's Air Service Pilots. And when all the men went off to war, they took the good airplanes with them, and they left the women and the bad airplanes at home. But they had young men who needed to be trained as pilots. So the women were permitted to transport airplanes from place to place and to train the young pilots and others. What Aunt Helen did was, this is just amazing to me, she would fly the airplane dragging a target behind her, and from the ground they were firing live ammunition at the targets. Wow. So this was dangerous for women. And Aunt Helen did go on to give her interview many other times, but it was a wonderful experience. And I'm sure that whoever you speak to who has participated in this program has similar, very moving stories to tell about their experiences. Let me take a peek at my notes. Oh, I also, my mother-in-law wanted to be interviewed also, so I did that too. But the point is that history, for the most part, that we learn is about rich men through the years, and you know, various other big dignitaries. But history is in all our villages and is in all our homes. And those are stories that we really need to capture. And as the professionals that we are, whether we're using a pen or a keyboard or our voice, steno machines, audio, video, we can all participate and not make it our full-time job for compensation, but just take moments to write down and preserve the stories that will be the history for our families. Certainly it will be interesting to our children and grandchildren, but also in our local museums, maybe they have a place to store these, or our libraries, or some universities may have departments where you can store them. But I think worldwide, all of us here within Intersteno can play a role and preserve those. I think I am at the end of anything relevant I had to say. And so I will hand it back to Jim. Thank you.
And I guess that, and just one last point really, which is that the whole world has a story to tell. Regardless of, Karen gave you some specific examples of what she's been able to do with her family and with her hobby, you know, with the sport of falconry and so forth. And this is something that you might consider. I mean, it's not obviously just stenographic court reporters that could be working on this. You know, any of the methods that anyone uses can be applied and be used to capture these types of interviews. So, you know, as we try to portray, you know, no matter where you are in the world, somebody's got a story to tell. And just to finish up and to have a little bit of fun, it's like you can help them tell that story, and your organizations can help to work that out. And I think I did that thinking Fausto would be here, and now he's not even in the room. So, but anyway, so you know, encourage you that it's been a very worthwhile experience for the members of our organization, for the schools and the students that we've had involved with it. And you know, to hit 3,000 interviews, which we did just around 3,000 interviews that our members had transcribed, that we've been able to document at least. You know, it really was a great thing. And there's many more that still need to be transcribed. There are many more interviews that need to be done. And I think it really does help to encourage others to go out and do the interviews when they know that they have court reporters there to help support and create a transcript of to memorialize the interview later on. So
we have time for questions.
Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I or more likely Karen would be happy to answer.
No questions.
Don't you have questions? I do have one. A couple.
Sure.
Maybe three. Do you personally do the interviews, or do you simply transcribe, or both?
I have done all of those. I have done simply transcribing of audio recordings. I have done the interview while a friend of mine sits nearby and writes.
Okay.
And I have done while somebody else does the interview, I sit there and write. So, and then I will transcribe afterward, my own notes. So yes, there are all different ways of doing it. It just must be done.
Okay, yes. And other questions? Yes. Wow. Coming.
Question about
I'm coming.
is there any sense of
Je viens.
It's for history. So.
Did you have any problem with censorship?
Censorship?
Yeah, politically speaking, I don't know, military. issues, secret?
No, if they had any, they didn't tell me. The people I interviewed didn't have top secret jobs. Oh, although Aunt Helen, they did not reveal that women had been flying the airplanes until 1980. So they kept, after the war was over, all the women were told, after they had been doing all these very, brave, scary things, they said, the men are home, go back to your kitchen.
Yeah.
And they were considered top secret. They had a code name and everything for it. And it was only in about 1980, I think, that my aunt and some of her friends read in the newspaper, first women pilots being graduated from the Air Force Academy in Colorado. And my aunt and her friends were very angry. This is not fair. That's not true. And so we had a big political movement as a result of it, and then they opened the records. But other than that, I'm not aware of any censorship or any sensitive information that I was given. I can't speak for all of the interviews, but I had no problem.
I'm sure there are times, there are enough interviews
stand
being done that it must occur. I haven't heard anything about it. But to emphasize, we focused a lot on what occurred in World War II, but the interviews include participants in our military right up to present day. So there are probably some cases. She gives an example where ultimately her Aunt Helen's experience was declassified. There most certainly are some things that wouldn't have been. But you would also think it would be the person being interviewed's responsibility of knowing what not to tell or what to talk about.
And I want to add one point. Although we're talking about this formal Veterans History Project, there are many more oral history projects going on. So they are capturing the stories of jazz musicians in New Orleans, of civil rights participants from the 1960s when civil rights became a big issue, and we had that movement. There are various aspects of history that we are memorializing and preserving.
Well, and I know that Steven Spielberg had made it. He was going about doing this for Holocaust survivors. Yeah.
Thank you.
There's time for another question. Yes.
Hello, I'd like to say thank you for such a fascinating presentation, and you've certainly given me lots of ideas of what I can do with my reporter's occasional downtime in the House of Commons in London. I have a practical question about transcribing from video, which, as we all know, is quite a difficult thing to do. Have you got any examples of how you managed to overcome that, or were you able to transfer the sound from the video files onto an audio system that you could more easily use?
Okay. In the case of just what I have done, I did audio files that were sent to me. Now, if they stripped that out of a video, I'm not aware. In the interviews I conducted myself, or that I wrote in real time while it was happening, there was also video running. So, thank you, Carlo. So that we could preserve everything. And so the video itself was not a problem at any point. And I think anyone who transcribed from video, they made sure they had good audio. We weren't just looking at the picture and trying to listen. We had good, solid, and as a matter of fact, that was an early problem, was the quality of the recordings, because they were starting to deteriorate.
Okay, we have another last question.
From Lina.
Now, not a real question, but there is simple software that you can use for transcribing videos. There is simple software for transcribing video. Expresscribe for the record, no problem at all. And it's very inexpensive.
Okay. Okay. Can we see a clip? Do you have a clip, or do you have a?
Did you have a clip? I don't know.
Or do we have internet website where we can see
it's-
something?
We don't have a clip. If you go to our website, which is two things. Our website, www.ncra.org, and then you'll see a link to our foundation, or either our foundation or NCRF. From there, you'll be able to get information about the Veterans History Project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting us.